The war was already over. That was the official version. The Draxan Ascendancy had signed the surrender accords after the destruction of their flagship over Nuroth. Their fleets had withdrawn. Their archons had gone silent. The galaxy, exhausted and bleeding, had chosen to call it peace. But in the outer sectors, far from the polished halls of diplomacy, people knew better. War doesn't end when the guns stop. It ends when the monsters do. Commander Lyra Ven stood on the observation deck of Outpost Halcyon and watched the void like it might answer her questions if she stared long enough. It never did. Still waiting, came a voice behind her. She didn't turn. We picked up another signal. A pause. Then footsteps. Captain Dareth moved beside her, arms folded. Distress. Not exactly. Lyra tapped the console. A waveform flickered to life. It's structured. Repeating. Old code. Dareth leaned closer. His expression tightened. Legacy band, he muttered. Lyra nodded once. Same as Nuroth. Silence settled between them. Outpost Halcyon wasn't military. It wasn't even strategic. It was a relay station, barely defended, tasked with monitoring trade lanes that hadn't seen traffic in months. They weren't supposed to deal with things like this. That band is dead, Dareth said finally. No one uses it. Lyra's voice stayed calm. They do. He didn't need to ask who. The signal repeated again. Weak. Broken. But deliberate. Any station responding. Containment breach. They are still here. The transmission dissolved into static. Dareth exhaled slowly. That's not Draxan. No, Lyra said. It's worse. They both knew the reports. Not the official ones. The real ones. Fragments from shattered colonies. Black boxes recovered from drifting hulls. Survivor testimonies that never made it into public archives. The Draxan hadn't all surrendered. Some had gone quiet. And the quiet ones were the dangerous kind. What are you thinking? Dareth asked. Lyra didn't hesitate. We answer. He stared at her. With what fleet? He snapped. We have 2 patrol cutters and a station shield that barely holds against solar flare. We don't need a fleet. That made him laugh. Short, humorless. That's exactly what the last people said before they died. Lyra turned to him then, eyes steady. No, she said. That's what they said before someone came. Dareth's jaw tightened. You're betting on a myth. I'm betting on a pattern. She brought up another display. Records, timestamps, scattered reports stitched together into something that almost looked like truth. Every confirmed legacy distress call in the last 12 cycles, she said. Every one that was answered. Dareth scanned it. His expression shifted. Humans, he said quietly. Every time, Lyra replied. The silence stretched. Then, even if they hear it, Dareth said, they could be days away. Or minutes. That's not how space works. Lyra gave the faintest hint of a smile. It is for them. Another burst of static filled the room. Then, they're inside the hull. We can't hold. Please. The signal cut. Hard. Gone. Dareth looked at her. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he sighed. You're already going to do it, aren't you? Lyra turned back to the console. Yes. Her hand hovered over the transmitter. Old. Manual. Unnecessary by modern standards. Which was exactly why it still mattered. Open all bands, she said. Even the dead ones. Dareth hesitated. Then, done. The transmitter clicked. Not a hum. Not a surge. Just a simple, mechanical click. Lyra leaned in. This is Outpost Halcyon, she said, voice steady. We have received your signal. A breath. Then, whoever you are. She pressed the key. You are not alone. The message went out. Into the dark. Into nothing. Into everything. Seconds passed. Then minutes. No reply. No change. Just the endless quiet of space. Dareth exhaled slowly. We tried. Lyra didn't move. Not yet. The console flickered. A faint pulse. Dareth leaned forward. Is that? Wait. Another pulse. Stronger. Structured. Then, a handshake. Old. Precise. Impossible. Dareth's voice dropped to a whisper. That's human code. Lyra felt something shift in her chest. Not relief. Not yet. Just certainty. The speakers crackled. Then a voice came through. Rough. Calm. Unhurried. Outpost Halcyon, it said. This is HNS Vigilant. A pause. Then, signal received. Dareth closed his eyes. Just for a second. Lyra spoke. We have a civilian distress source. Coordinates uploading now. Unknown hostile presence. Copy that, the voice replied. No panic. No hesitation. Just acceptance. Then, we're already moving. Dareth blinked. Already? The reply came, almost amused. You called, the human said. What did you expect? Lyra glanced at the sensor board and froze. A new contact had appeared. No jump signature. No warning. Just there. Close. Too close. The ship was smaller than she expected. Dark. Angular. Quiet. But it sat on the display with the same impossible weight she had seen in the Narath reports. Like it had entered the system already committed. Dareth whispered, one ship. Lyra didn't look away. That's enough. The human voice returned. All stations, it said. Marking target vector. A beat. Then softer. Let's go answer a problem. And the ship moved. Not like something entering battle, but like something that had already decided how it would end. Far out in the dark, something terrible waited. Something that had survived the war. Something that thought the galaxy had stopped paying attention. It was wrong. Because somewhere, someone had sent a signal. And somewhere else, humanity had heard it. The first thing Commander Lyra Ven noticed about the human ship was that it did not behave like something that had just arrived. It behaved like something that had been waiting. HNS Vigilant. Dareth read off the display, voice low. No fleet tag. No escort. No hesitation. Track its vector, Lyra said. I already am, he replied. Then, after a pause, I don't understand it. Explain. Dareth swallowed. It's not accelerating normally. It's adjusting trajectory mid-burn without losing velocity. Lyra stared at the screen. That's not possible. No, he said quietly. It's not supposed to be. The human ship cut across the system in a line that ignored every rule of safe navigation. It didn't slow for debris fields. It didn't avoid unstable gravity wakes. It threaded through them, like it had done it before. The voice returned over comms. Halcyon, we have your distress source locked. Transmitting telemetry. Data flooded their screens. Lyra leaned forward. Receiving, wait, this can't be right. Dareth's feathers bristled. What? That station. The image resolved. Broken. Dark. Spinning slowly against the void. Outpost Kepri. Or what was left of it. Signal origin confirmed, Lyra whispered. The station's outer hull was torn open in long, deliberate scars. Not explosive damage. Not random. Surgical. Dareth's voice dropped. That's not a battle. No, Lyra said. It's a harvest. Movement flickered across the scan. Not ships. Smaller. Too many. Contacts. Dareth asked. Lyra zoomed in. Her stomach tightened. Boarding clusters, she said. Dozens of them. A beat. Still active. The human voice cut back in. Halcyon, be advised, it said. We're reading hostile presence across the structure. Lyra keyed the channel. Confirmed. Unknown class. Behavior consistent with. She stopped. Because the word didn't feel big enough. The human finished it for her. Draxan remnants, he said. A pause. Then, figured. Dareth leaned closer. That's it. That's all he says. Lyra didn't answer. Because the tone wasn't dismissive. It was familiar. The Vigilant didn't slow as it approached the wreck. If anything, it accelerated. Until what? The human voice cut in, calm but immovable. Until they finish? Silence filled Halcyon's command deck. Lyra didn't answer. Because there wasn't an answer that didn't sound like surrender. The Vigilant plunged into the debris field. No hesitation. No adjustment for safety. Just a clean, brutal line straight toward the broken remains of Outpost Kepri. Impact risk climbing, Dareth said quickly. Fragment density is too high. On the display, the human ship twitched. Not a drift. Not a correction. A snap decision executed at impossible speed. It slipped between two spinning hull plates with meters to spare, rolled under a tumbling engine core, and cut thrust just long enough to pivot around a collapsing truss. Then it surged forward again. Dareth stared. It's not flying, he whispered. Lyra didn't take her eyes off the screen. No, she said. It's hunting. The comm crackled again. Halcyon, we're going dark for entry, the human said. Keep your receivers open. Understood, Lyra replied. A beat. Then she added quieter. Be careful. There was the faintest pause on the other end. Then, we will be effective. The line cut. Inside the wreck of Kepri, the dark was not empty. It moved. The first thing the human marines saw when they breached the hull was blood. Not fresh. Not clean. Dried in streaks along the walls where atmosphere had vented and taken warmth with it. Entry point secured. came a voice over their internal net. Move. They advanced in tight formation. 5 figures in black combat rescue armor, weapons low but ready, visors glowing faintly in the dead corridors. No wasted motion. No chatter. Just breathing. Life signs? One asked. Faint, another replied. Clustered deeper. Multiple levels below. And the hostiles? A pause. Then, everywhere, something skittered in the dark ahead. Fast. Low. The first drone hit the front Marine like a thrown blade. It didn't reach him. 3 shots cracked in rapid succession. The machine burst apart midair, fragments scattering across the corridor. Contact confirmed, the lead Marine said. Engage on sight. The darkness answered. They came in waves. Draxon kill constructs, 6-limbed, low profile, built for confined slaughter. No hesitation. No fear. Only function. The humans didn't fall back. They stepped forward. Gunfire filled the corridor in tight, controlled bursts. Each shot placed. Each movement deliberate. The Marines didn't spray fire. They solved problems. Left vent. A drone burst from the wall. Gone in a flash of rounds. Rear crawl space. Another came from behind. A Marine pivoted without thinking. 2 shots. Clean. Final. They moved deeper. Over broken bodies. Through flickering light. Into the heart of the station. Signal source below. Came the update. Multiple survivors. Contained. Contained how? The answer came a second later. Not willingly. The chamber opened before them. A cargo bay. Or what had been one. Now it was a pen. Civilians, dozens of them, huddled behind a makeshift barrier of torn plating. Exhausted. Injured. Terrified. And around them, Draxon. Not machines. Not drones. Real ones. Tall. Angular. Still. Watching. They didn't rush. They didn't panic. They turned as one toward the breach. One stepped forward. Armor dark. Voice cold. You are late, it said. The lead human Marine didn't raise his weapon. Not yet. Step away from them, he said. The Draxon tilted its head. You crossed a war to reach this place, it said. For livestock. A pause. Then, I am curious why. The human's voice didn't change. They're under protection. A flicker of something. Amusement, maybe, crossed the Draxon's posture. You are alone, it said. The human shifted slightly. Just enough to square his stance. No, he replied. We're enough. The Draxon moved first. Fast. Faster than anything that size should be. It didn't matter. The humans were already firing. The chamber erupted into violence. Tight. Controlled. Brutal. Draxon warriors surged forward. Blades igniting. Armor locking. The humans met them head-on. One Marine took a hit. Hard enough to stagger, but didn't fall. He stepped in closer instead. Fired point-blank into a seam. Another dropped low, swept a Draxon's legs, and finished it before it hit the ground. The lead Marine drove straight through the center. No hesitation. No retreat. The Draxon commander met him blade to blade. For 1 second, they were equal. Then the human changed angle. Just slightly. Just enough. The blade slipped past. The shot followed. The Draxon fell. Silence crashed into the chamber. Broken only by ragged breathing. Area secure, someone said. The civilians didn't move at first. They just stared, like they weren't sure this was real. The lead Marine lowered his weapon. Stepped forward. Slowly. Carefully. You're safe now, he said. A child near the front flinched. Then, are you? The child whispered. The Marine paused. Then nodded once. Yeah, he said. We're the ones who come when it gets bad. Up in orbit, the vigilance engines flared. More contacts were appearing at the edge of the system. Fast. Organized. Dareth saw them first. Lyra. She turned. And felt her breath catch. A formation. Not one ship. Not 2. Dozens. Human signatures. The cavalry had heard the call. And this time, they hadn't come alone. The first human reinforcements didn't arrive like a fleet. They arrived like a decision. Multiple contacts confirmed, Dareth said, voice tight. 30, no, 40 ships and counting. Lyra stared at the tactical display. They weren't spreading out. They weren't forming defensive lines. They were converging. All of them. On Kepri. That's not a rescue formation, Dareth whispered. Lyra shook her head slowly. No, she said. That's containment. The comms lit up. Not chaotic. Not overlapping. Structured. Layered. Perimeter group locking outer lanes. Interceptors screening debris field. Medical carriers standing by for intake. Strike elements. Hold for targeting solution. Then, a new voice. Older. Sharper. Carrying authority like gravity. All units, this is Fleet Command Actual, it said. Confirmed distress classification. The Vigilant answered. Confirmed hostile occupation of civilian structure. Captain's voice steady. Drax and remnants active. Survivors secured but under threat. A pause. Then, request escalation clearance. Silence. For half a second. Then, granted. Lyra felt it. Not in the room. Not in the station. But in the tone of everything that followed. Rules of engagement updated. The Fleet Command voice continued. No hostile leaves the structure. A beat. Then colder. No hostile leaves the system. Dareth exhaled slowly. That's not rescue anymore. Lyra didn't look away from the screen. No, she said. It's judgment. Inside Kepri, the humans moved fast. Not rushed. Efficient. Evac route secured. One Marine reported. Civilians moving. Good. The lead Marine replied. Keep them tight. No stragglers. Behind them, something shifted in the dark. Not a drone. Not a soldier. Something heavier. Hold. One of the Marines said quietly. The walls trembled. A low, grinding sound echoed through the structure. Metal bending. Space making room. Then it came through. The Draxan didn't send machines for this. They sent something worse. A war form. Tall enough to scrape the ceiling. Layered in black armor that looked grown, not built. Its limbs ended in heavy, curved blades instead of hands. Its face, if it had one, was hidden behind a smooth, featureless plate. One of the civilians screamed. The Marines didn't. New contact, one said. Yeah, the lead Marine replied. I see it. The war form stepped forward. Slow, deliberate, each movement bending the deck beneath it. You interfere again, it said. Its voice wasn't sound. It was pressure. Felt more than heard. The lead Marine raised his weapon. Finally. Step away, he said. The war form tilted its head. You are not Fleet, it said. You are not Legion. A pause. Then, you are insufficient. The Marine's grip tightened. Yeah, he said. People keep saying that. The war form moved. It crossed the distance in a single violent motion. Too fast. Too heavy. Too much. The first Marine didn't dodge. He met it. Impact. Armor against armor. Force against force. The corridor shook. The Marine was thrown back. But not broken. Now, someone shouted. The rest of the team opened fire. Not scattered. Not panicked. Focused. Rounds slammed into the warform's armor. Most deflected. Some didn't. Joints. The lead Marine barked. Hit the joints. They adapted instantly. Fire shifted. Angles changed. The warform pushed forward anyway. One swing. A Marine barely blocked it. His armor screamed under the impact. Another hit. This one landed. Hard. He went down. Didn't get back up. For a split second, everything froze. Then the lead Marine stepped forward. Not back. Not away. Forward. You picked the wrong station, he said. He closed the distance. Inside the arc of the blade. Too close for the warform to swing clean. Point blank. He fired. Again. The rounds punched into the joint at the creature's neck. Something cracked. The warform staggered. Just slightly. That was enough. Push, the Marine roared. The team surged as one. Every shot, every step, every movement aligned. The warform tried to recover. Too late. The final shot hit deep. The creature collapsed. Heavy. Final. Silence followed. Broken only by breathing. Status, the lead Marine said. 2 wounded. 1 down. A pause. Then, we keep moving. Behind them, the civilians were watching. Not with fear anymore. With something else. Understanding. Up in orbit, the human fleet tightened its grip. Dareth watched the tactical display. They're not just blocking exits, he said. They're mapping the entire system. Lyra nodded. They're hunting everything that survived. A new signal appeared. Faint. Hidden. Trying to slip away through the outer debris. Dareth locked onto it. Got one, he said. Small craft. Running cold. The comm lit instantly. Target acquired, a human voice said. Lyra leaned closer. What happens now? She asked quietly. The answer came without hesitation. Now, the voice said. We make sure they don't do this again. On the screen, a single human interceptor broke formation. Turned. And accelerated. The fleeing craft didn't make it far. Inside Kepri, The last survivors were moving. Escorted. Protected. Alive. And for the first time since the war had ended, the truth was clear. The Draxen hadn't been defeated. They had been allowed to stop. And now, humanity had decided the war wasn't finished. The warform's body hadn't even cooled when the station shook again. Not from inside. From above. Orbital shockwave, one of the Marines muttered. The lead Marine didn't turn. Fleet's working, he said. Good. Commander Lyra Vin saw it happen in real time. On the tactical display, the outer edge of the system lit up. Not with chaos. With precision. Strike groups are moving, Dareth said, barely breathing. They've divided the system into sectors. Lyra watched the markers blink into existence. Clean. Organized. Unavoidable. They're not chasing targets, she realized. They already know where everything is. A new transmission rolled across the command deck. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just certain. All units, Fleet Command said. Execute full sweep. A pause. Then, nothing leaves. The human fleet moved. Interceptors cut across escape vectors. Destroyers pivoted into firing lanes. Heavy cruisers advanced, not to engage, but to close space itself. Every gap. Gone. Dareth swallowed. They've sealed the system. Lyra nodded slowly. Yes. And now they're emptying it. Inside Kepri, the air felt heavier. Like the station itself knew what was happening outside. Civilians halfway to extraction, a Marine reported. Keep them moving, the lead Marine replied. A faint tremor ran through the floor. Different from before. Rhythmic. Distant. More contacts, someone asked. The answer came from above. Negative, Lyra's voice echoed over the comm. That's not incoming. A beat. Then, that's outgoing fire. Outside, human ships were firing in controlled intervals. Not volleys. Not barges. Executions. Each shot precise. Each target erased. Dareth watched one contact vanish. Then another. Then three at once. They're not even letting them regroup, he said. They're dismantling them piece by piece. Lyra didn't respond. Because something else had appeared. A shadow. Deep in the debris field. Masked. Still. Dareth, she said quietly. I see it, he replied. It wasn't large. Not compared to warships. But it didn't behave like anything else. No drive signature, Dareth whispered. No emissions. Then how is it? It's hiding, Lyra said. The object shifted. Just slightly. And suddenly, every system on Halcyon flickered. Signal interference. Dareth snapped. It's broadcasting something, scrambling sensors. The comm lit instantly. HNS vigilant to Halcyon. The human voice came through, sharper now. You see it? Yes, Lyra replied. Unknown vessel. Masked. A pause. Short. Focused. Then, we've been looking for that. Lyra's breath caught. You know what it is? The answer came flat. Command node. Inside Kepri, the Marines froze. Not physically, but mentally. Command node, one repeated. The lead Marine's voice hardened. That means everything here, a beat, is still being controlled. The silence that followed was different. Heavier. Thought the war was over, another muttered. The lead Marine checked his weapon. Yeah, he said. Looks like they didn't get the message. Above them, the hidden ship moved again. And this time, it wasn't hiding. Panels shifted. Armor unfolded. Something beneath it began to glow. Dareth's voice shook. That's not a drive. Lyra stared. No, she whispered. That's a transmitter. The human fleet reacted instantly. All units, priority target updated, fleet command snapped. Command node is active. Repeat, active. The glow intensified. It's broadcasting. Dareth shouted. Wide spectrum, encrypted. Lyra understood before he finished. It's calling something. The silence after that realization felt endless. Then, a new signal appeared. Far edge of the system. Then another. And another. Dareth's voice dropped to a whisper. No. Lyra didn't blink. Those aren't debris signatures, she said. The human comm cut through everything. Sharp. Immediate. All units, the voice said. New contacts confirmed. A pause. Then, multiple. The tactical display filled. Not dozens. Not hundreds. Thousands. Dormant signals waking up. Hidden ships revealing themselves. Fragments of a war that had never actually ended. Dareth took a step back. They were hiding, he said. All this time. Lyra's voice was steady, but colder than before. They weren't defeated. A beat. They were waiting. Inside Kepri, the lead Marine looked toward the ceiling, as if he could see through metal into the void beyond. Command just escalated, someone said over their net. He nodded once. Yeah, he said quietly. I figured. Outside, the human fleet didn't retreat, didn't scatter, didn't hesitate. They adjusted. Formations shifted. Weapons armed. Lines redrew. Not like a force reacting to surprise, but like one finally facing the fight it expected all along. Lyra felt it then. Not fear. Not hope. Something sharper. What happens now? Dareth asked. The answer didn't come from her. It came from the humans. Calm. Certain. Unshaken. All stations, Fleet Command said. Prepare for extended engagement. A pause. Then, we're not done yet. And for the first time since Narath, the galaxy realized something terrifying. Humanity hadn't ended the war. They had only paused it. The system did not fall into chaos. That was the first difference. When the hidden fleet woke, when thousands of dormant Draxan signatures lit the void like a buried storm finally breaking. Nothing scattered. Nothing panicked. The human fleet adjusted. Line holds, Fleet Command said. Calm. Measured. Unmoved. Commander Lyra Ven watched the tactical display as the impossible unfolded. Thousands of enemy contacts. Against dozens of human ships. Dareth whispered what everyone was thinking. They're outnumbered. Lyra didn't answer. Because something about the formation was wrong. They're not spreading, she said slowly. They're tightening. The human ships weren't forming a defensive perimeter. They were drawing inward. Condensing. Why would they? Dareth stopped. Because he saw it. They're not defending the system, he said. They're defending one point. On the display, every human ship aligned. Not around Halcyon. Not around the fleet. Around Kepri. Around the civilians. Lyra felt something shift inside her chest. Again. Stronger this time. They're not trying to win the battle, she whispered. Dareth looked at her. They're making sure nothing gets through. Inside the wreck of Kepri, the last evac group reached the docking corridor. Human med teams pulled survivors across the threshold of the waiting transports. Some walking. Some carried. All alive. Last group moving, a Marine reported. The lead Marine stood at the rear, watching the dark. Go, he said. You too, sir. Go. They went. Because they understood. He turned back toward the station, toward the sound of something moving in the deep. He keyed his comm. Civilians clear, he said. Above, the response came instantly. Copy, Fleet Command replied. A pause. Then, execute Phase 2. The tone changed. Not louder. Not sharper. Just final. Outside, the human fleet moved as one. They didn't charge. They didn't scatter. They advanced. Slowly. Deliberately. Like a wall. The first wave of Draxan ships surged forward. Fast. Aggressive. Confident in their numbers. They hit the human line. And broke. Not because of overwhelming fire. Not because of some impossible weapon. But because every angle, every vector, every approach was already covered. Intercept grid holding. One human voice reported. Adjusting Sector 3. Sector 5 clean. It wasn't a battle. It was control. Each Draxan ship that pushed forward found itself isolated. Cut off. Destroyed with quiet efficiency. Dareth stared. They're solving it, he said. Lyra nodded slowly. Yes. They're turning a war into a problem. At the center of it all, the command node burned brighter. Its signal intensified. Desperate now. Calling. Commanding. But something had changed. The ships answering it were dying faster than they could arrive. The voice from the Vigilant cut through the net. Command node is the key, it said. Take it out, the rest collapse. Fleet Command responded. Agreed. A pause. A sign strike. Silence. For half a second. Then, we will. Lyra frowned. That's not how they've been doing it, she said. No delegations. No rotations. Dareth's eyes widened. They're doing it themselves. The Vigilant broke formation. Alone. It didn't wait for escort. Didn't request support. It just turned. And accelerated straight toward the command node. Human vessel, Lyra said quickly. You're entering concentrated hostile. Yeah, the voice replied. Still calm. We noticed. Behind it, the fleet didn't follow. They held the line. Because they understood. This wasn't their part. The void between the Vigilant and the command node filled with enemy fire. Beams. Missiles. Shrapnel clouds. The human ship didn't evade like before. It didn't weave. Didn't dance. It pushed through, shields flaring, armor burning, trajectory unbroken. They're taking hits. Dareth shouted, shields dropping. Lyra leaned forward. Why aren't they pulling back? The answer came from the comm. Quiet. Certain. Because if it keeps talking, the human said, more people die. The Vigilant closed the distance. The command node reacted, its structure shifting, unfolding, revealing weapons it had kept hidden. Too late. The human ship was already there. At point-blank range. Target locked, the voice said. A pause. Then, for the record, the guns fired. Everything the Vigilant had left. Focused. Concentrated. Absolute. The command node shattered. Not exploded. Ended. Its signal died mid-transmission. Across the system, the effect was immediate. Draxan ships faltered, drifted, lost coordination. Some tried to flee. They didn't make it. The human fleet moved again. Not as a wall this time, but as a closing hand. One by one, the remaining threats vanished. Until there was nothing left. Just wreckage, silence, and the Vigilant. Drifting, damaged, alive. On Halcyon, no one spoke. Not for a long time. Then Dareth exhaled. It's over. Lyra watched the last of the sensor pings fade. This time, she believed it. Yes, she said quietly. This time it is. The comm opened one last time. The human captain's voice returned. Rougher now. Tired. Halcyon, he said. System is secure. Lyra closed her eyes briefly, then answered. Understood. A pause. Thank you. There was silence on the other end. Then, just doing the job, he said. But before the line closed, he added one more thing. Quieter. If someone calls. Lyra felt her chest tighten. You answer. The signal ended. Days later, when the survivors were safe, when the reports were written, when the galaxy tried to understand what had happened, they would argue about tactics, about technology, about how a smaller force had defeated something so vast. But the survivors of Khepri, and Halcyon, and Nurath before them, they knew the truth. Humanity's strength wasn't just in how they fought. It was in when they chose to fight. Not for territory, not for power, but for a single, simple reason. Because someone, somewhere, had called for help. And humanity had answered.